Hey everyone, welcome back to HD Reddit Reads. Today's topic is going to be Redditors who have a stepfather/mother younger than them. What's your story? Let's get into it. I found out my dad died because he stroked out while in a motel with someone younger than me. This was, to our knowledge, the third time he cheated in a long-term relationship, and he was already married to someone 20 years younger than him. None of this really affected me because I knew he was a piece of shit for years, so I guess it's not really a great answer to this thread, but it's still kind of amazing. The story is simply that my father is an irresponsible creep. It was just the two of us when I was growing up, but he made it clear he was resentful for taking care of me. He's in his 60s, I'm 34, my older half-sister turns 40 in a few days. My youngest half-brother just turned 2. I'm sure I have siblings I don't even know about. His current wife is maybe 30 and by far the oldest woman he's ever been with. He cheated on his last wife with her. His last wife was 19 when they met. I was 17. But that was better than his previous girlfriend before that, who was a few months younger than me, when I was 17. I always make sure that his baby mamas know that I'll always be there for them and their kids when he leaves, because he's going to leave. It's interesting watching how surprised they are when he does. My dad is 71. 6 months ago, he left my mom for a 25-year-old. I'm 33 and my sister is 28. His new girlfriend is 6 months pregnant. They're not married because my parents' divorce hasn't gone through yet. But I guess once that happens, I'll have a stepmom who's 8 years younger than me and a newborn half-sister. This will be my dad's third marriage. The first one ended because he slept with his brother's wife. So the story here is, my dad is trashy. My mother's husband is 2 years younger than my husband. My husband is 7 years older than me, so my mom's guy isn't younger than me, but it's still a weird dynamic. My mom jokes that I always dated older, and she always dated younger, so it was bound to happen. We actually made a pact when I was 20 that I wouldn't date anyone older than her, and she promised she wouldn't date anyone younger than me. We both had some close calls, but held true to that pact. The only really weird thing is watching our husbands interact. They are serious best friends whenever there is a family get-together. If we can't find one, we look for the other. My parents married young. A decade into it, he was screwing our babysitter. He eventually left our mom and married her. That only lasted a few years. Dad then played knight in shining armor to a succession of women down on their luck, on the outs with their parents, raising kids on their own with no other help, etc. Same pattern over and over. Swore he wasn't screwing them, but who knows? They were always about the same age, late teens to early 20s, no matter how old my dad got or how much older we, his children, were compared to them. Ultimately, his work took him to the Philippines. Ah, you can see where this is going, can't you? And became involved with young women there. He said they were just friends, and all his many trips there were to help her and her family. We rolled our eyes. Eventually, Dad informed us he had married her so she could come to Canada for a better life. She is about 5 years younger than the youngest one of us. I don't have any beef with her. She's a kind and decent person, and hardworking, albeit too submissive and deferential to my dad. I'm sure that's part of what he likes about her. My problem is with my dad alone, who has repeatedly proven to himself to be a self-centered narcissist fixated on younger women. He congratulates himself for saving all these people and helping them out after their miserable lives when he's never had any of the time of day for his own kids or grandkids. He's lied and broken promises his whole life, and I have no respect for him. When I married, I would not let him walk me down the aisle. A few years ago when I visited, I stumbled across his history on his computer. It was a most unsavory collection of porn involving young teens and underage girls. I can't say I was surprised in the least. As for me personally, I've spent years in therapy trying to untangle a lot of crap surrounding my dad. Although my head knows what he is, and that I shouldn't give two shits about him, the sad reality is that part of me inexplicably still wants his love and approval. Not only has he effed up our own relationship, but he's contributed to my legacy of being unable to commit, and my screwed up sexual mores. Healing is a long process. Okay, so my dad loves controlling people. He was really abusive to me growing up. I'm sure if you need any stories, just dig through my history. He used to always go on about wanting a Chinese wife because she'd be really grateful and meek enough towards him that he wouldn't get into any arguments. Well, not long after declaring the above, he met and married a 21-year-old Chinese woman. He's late 50s. I was 23 at the time. The way he treats her in public is revolting. He is so condescending and talks really slow and firm like someone would to a toddler. He tells her off and calls her names. It was so sad to see. I don't know for sure, but she may have left him, as when I was in last contact with him, he never brought her with him or spoke about her. Background. My mom and dad divorced when I was very young. So young, it is impossible for me to even remember. I'm very lucky they stayed good friends. I'm 34, my dad is 65, and he's in a relationship with someone who's 26, so 8 years younger than me. They've been together for 3 to 5 years and are happy together, and I'm happy for them. At first it was a bit awkward for me, up to the point that it took me half a year before I decided to meet them together. At first I just met with my dad alone every week. I was mainly worried about my dad, still am a bit. He came out of a long relationship that went really bad, got cheated on after 8 to 9 years, and he had a really rough time with it. So I was scared he would end up in the same depression if this one went bad as well. Not because of cheating, but the age difference eventually would catch up to them as an issue. I've spoken openly about my worries with my dad a few times along the last 3 years, and it will take time for them to actually go away. There's a 38-year age gap, and my dad at some point will get health issues because of age, and I'm cautious of what will happen. Both of them assure me they love each other and that they'll take care of each other no matter what. I fully believe they believe that. I fully believe they love each other. That's very apparent from the way they interact. And I'm very happy they feel that way with each other and found that happiness. But I'll always be worried that when the typical health issues start, someone will have to do the day-to-day care that brings a lot of strain on relationships. Even couples who have been together for 30 plus years and are roughly the same age. In this case, they'd potentially be together for less than 10 years when it starts. I hope my dad remains 100% healthy till he's 100, but realistically. So happy that they are happy, cautiously optimistic for the future. I'm a guy, 23, my dad is 64, was 40 when I was born, and last year he married a woman who was 22 at the time. My parents weren't really together, never got married, and split soon after I was born. My mom's black, and my dad's Iranian, who came to the US in the 70s as a student and never left. My dad left school, was pretty transient, moved up and down the East Coast, and eventually settled in New Jersey, where I'm from. I didn't keep much contact with my dad, but I started talking to him again a few years ago. He didn't have much companionship, so eventually he went back to Iran, met a woman who already had a kid and was divorced, looking to make a better life for herself. So my dad married her, and she and her son came over just before the Trump ban. My dad talks pretty freely about his feelings towards his wife, and hers towards him. He'll say things like, obviously she doesn't love me, she just used me to come to the US. Both my dad's wife and her son have a hard time speaking English. The wife had a mental breakdown last year and checked herself into a psych ward, into which I also checked myself a year prior for depression and attempting suicide. My dad's pretty poor and lives in mostly ghetto neighborhoods, with not much to do. It sure seems like my stepmother is isolated, and until she learns English, she's pretty much at my dad's house all day long. Another fun fact, my mom's mom is younger than my dad. My mom's mom had my mom at 17 when my dad was already 19. I'm 27 and my stepmom is 26. My dad, 54, brought her over from the Philippines and they've been married for almost 2 years now. It was definitely different at first, though I didn't have much room to talk considering I've known a couple older gentlemen in a very biblical sense. I was most worried about my dad getting hurt or taken advantage of. They just didn't seem to have much in common, other than they both liked to watch 90 Day Fiancé. Now that the newness has worn off, I can see my dad was very lonely and needed companionship. My auntie mama is a lovely young woman who grew up poor in an island with about 15 families on it. She laughs when people call it a paradise because she says it's very hot and there's nothing to do, so I see their marriage as more of an arrangement to better both of their situations. They may not be madly in love, but I can tell they care for each other. And now that it's been about 2 years, I can say with confidence I get along better with her than my old man. Does it count if I knew someone who purposely dated younger girls? I was 19 when I met him, and he looked about mid-30s. Being young, and what I thought adventurous was, we went on a date, and that's when I learned how bad I effed up. He told me he wanted to have children, that's why he was dating girls in their early 20s. Understandable, some people really want to have children. But, he already had children. Right at the beginning of the date, he was having a moment because his 14-year-old daughter had a boyfriend. This is when I found out he was in his 40s, not in his 30s. And it was so awesome to meet his fellow friends his age who kept giving me strange looks, for a good reason. I stupidly continued the date with him, and we went for a drive. While dodging his groping hands and telling him no to all his sexual requests, I learned he had a son who was in college. Cool. He tells me he thinks his son is older than me. I ask him how old his son is. His son is 21. I told him that I am younger than his son. His response? That's so hot. I noped out of that as fast as I could and never spoke to him again, but I still knew he was trying to find other girls to date through word of mouth. So creepy. Those people genuinely get off to the age difference because they have this idea they groom you into a little plaything, but most young girls don't know better. He isn't the first guy I met who was really into that too, and that's the saddest part. Thank you for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing. It'll be greatly appreciated. And if you want to visit the original threads, I'll link them in the description. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one.